Hey everybody, welcome to the
Hey everybody.
Show. We are happy. We got Pharrell Williams playing in the background. Here we go. There we go. Oh man, it's definitely a happy time.
It is a happy day, Jamal. It really is.
It really is. It really is. Before anything, we just want to say that this webinar is made possible by Access Services. Access Service is a nonprofit serving 11 counties in eastern Pennsylvania with the mission to create better ways to serve people with special needs. They've been doing it for 44 years and only expanding their services as they bend to fit the needs of those in eastern Pennsylvania. So once again, welcome to the Ben and Jay Show. We have a very important guest that is here with us today. Dr. Julia Parish-Morris is with us. Extraordinaire. I don't know what else we can add on to your title, your name, but you definitely do fit the bill with that. But before anything, Ben, what do you have to tell our audience?
We actually have two announcements today. One about the, don't forget to tune in to Bev Weinberg's thing at 4 o'clock today for Integrate for Good. All right. So anybody listening out there, make sure she's giving away some fabulous prizes and some different stuff. So tune in for that one. I'll send the link out after that if you want more information. Also, today we wanted to thank our sponsor of the show, Tony Roney's Pizza, has given us one large cheese pizza, 16-inch large cheese pizza, or a tomato pie. So Tony Roney, you're the man, Tony Roney. Shout out to Tony Roney Pizza, and they are the man right there. And you can go ahead, Jamal.
All right, so everybody just stay tuned until the end of the show. We'll be raffling off that pizza. How we'll do it is everybody that's attending, we have your email address. So there will be a lucky winner that will be picked before the end of the show, and we will get in contact with you to claim your prize. But before anything, I will rather prefer you, Ben, to go first. Introduce yourself. Tell them who you are.
My name is Ben or G, as they call it. But they really call me Ben. But, you know, I am on the autism spectrum, and I'm working here with my man, Jamel, who is an awesome father, 39-year-old awesome man. So we tag team, and I was walking home one day, and I said to myself, I want to start a radio show. So I literally called out my buddy Jamel, and I said, Jamel, let's start something. And he goes, okay. So we had different guests on our show, and then that's when we thought of Dr. Julia Parish-Morris, our guest today, and we're so excited for down the road for other people's shows that we're going to be airing out and stuff.
That's right. That's right. So a little bit about myself. I'm not as extraordinary as Ben over here, aka the mayor, who knows everybody, but I do well. I'm the co-host along with Ben. My name is Jamel Owens. A lot of you guys know me from me having my own show called The Awesome Show, where I like to empower fathers to speak up and speak out about autism and their feelings. Ben did give me a call that one glorious day during this COVID-19 situation. And actually, I was thinking about doing a show also, just my way of giving back to the community. And Ben said, hey, listen, I got an idea. I'm with Access Services. We want to put something out. We want you to join. And I said, listen, I cannot deny the godfather, the mayor of the request of having me on. So here I am in my best godfather apparel, nothing next to Ben, but we're here. And what we're doing is we're loving on the community through this crisis to let you guys know that in the autism community that you are not alone and you are not forgotten over everything that's happening in the world. Autism is a 365, 366 in a leap year type of ordeal, and we are here with you to experience the joy, because there is no sadness. It's all joy with our beautiful children.
Oh, Jamel, I haven't. Go ahead. And then I was going to say something real quick. I forgot to tell you about Friday night. Did you hear about Friday night? There's a big autism panel this Friday night on Facebook.
Oh, Friday night at what time, Ben?
8 p.m. It's with our friends for the late night snack show this Friday night. If you're interested in joining or listening or tuning in, we're going to have a panel about autism and talk about adult services and different stuff that we're going to be mentioning for our future. And we have a couple of guests that are going to be on that night. It's going to be great.
Nice. So if you want to get in contact with us on how you can actually join that panel of discussion, just send us an email after this interview, and we'll gladly hook you up with that information. But without further ado,
go ahead,
we want to introduce our guest, Dr. Julia Parish-Morris. Thank you. Dr. Morris is a research assistant professor of psychology with the Perelman, am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
Okay, Perelman School of Medicine, and scientist with the Center for Autism Research at CHOP. Her primary research interests are language development, social attention, and the interactive effects of language and social motivation on higher social cognition.
Cognition, yeah.
Excuse me, theory of mind. Recent projects include assessing social motivation and language development using infrared eye tracking, studying growth trajectories of receptive and expressive language in preschoolers with autism spectrum disorder, better known as ASD. Also examining the monitoring effects of language on intervention outcomes in 3 to 5-year-olds with autism, and applying computational linguistics methods to pinpoint a linguistic signature of autism. The list goes more and more and more. AKA, she is the best. AKA,
she is the best.
She runs the town. She is you have, oh man, awards. One award that I want to say before we get into, and I was looking at this, I'm sorry, was the Presidential Fellowship. What is that exactly, Dr. Parish-Morris?
That was a fellowship that I got during my graduate studies, so while I was getting my PhD at Temple, and it basically helped fund my research for a few years while I was there.
Wow. So ladies and gentlemen, she is the real deal, and she is here with us on the Ben and Jay Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Julia Parish-Morris.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And Julia, I knew you, Dr. Parish, I knew you for a very long time when we've done research studies together. I just remember the one time I did, my first one was the MRI, and I said to them, can you duct tape my feet? Because I wasn't staying still in the MRI machine.
Yeah, you know what? You've got some creative solutions, Ben. You have never let us down as a research participant.
So I just had to bring that up. But here's my question. Thank you for joining us today on the show, Dr. Morris. What motivates you to research like those like myself that have autism?
That's a really great question. Well, every day I wake up and I'm curious about the way that different people's minds work. And folks with autism have a really unique perspective on the world and have so much to contribute. And I have a personal connection with autism. Autism, as you might know, tends to run in families, and autism runs in my family. So I have, siblings and other types of relatives that are affected by autism in various ways. Autism is so different from person to person that, it's hard to generalize, but I really care about the experiences of people with autism. I really care about helping every individual with autism reach their full potential and have the world really benefit from having people with autism in it. So that is what inspires me. I've known, I think, since I was maybe 14 that I wanted to study autism. So it's been a long journey. But I think that's something that's pretty common with autism researchers is your heart attaches to this research question and then you just follow it. It's like a special interest for me.
Wow, that's amazing. Like once again, just as a parent, just as a father, we definitely need more people like you who just take that interest and that passion and just go ahead and just use what their gift is, and you have plenty of gifts, probably gifts that I'm unbeknownst to, but just your mental capacity, your ability to learn and put together things for us to understand a little bit more closely. That's a gift that we definitely do appreciate, especially me as a father of an awesome young boy. I just want to say thank you. And thank you again for joining us. And that goes into the next question. Is I remember we spoke briefly before the show, and you spoke about your research with the identifiers of prevalence in girls versus boys. Can you speak a little bit about that research? Because I find that very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So my primary research is focused on language and language development and social communication in individuals with autism. But something I noticed a few years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, was that most of the research studies that I was reading were mostly boys. So autism is more prevalent in boys than girls. It's diagnosed 4 times in a boy for every 1 girl that's diagnosed, is kind of the general statistic. But there are girls who are diagnosed with autism. And in all the research studies I was looking at, I realized we don't know very much about these girls.
Wow.
And that was concerning for me because, you know, I know girls who have autism whose diagnoses were really late. You know, they got missed lots of times. They were diagnosed with different things that weren't autism. So they didn't get the kinds of supports that they could have benefited from. You know, nobody really was able to tell them why they had a hard time making friends or why they had a hard time holding a conversation. And so a lot of these girls grow up and get diagnosed as adults or get diagnosed late in their teenage years and don't have access to interventions and supports. So to me, that seemed really unfair. And, you know, it's more common in boys, but it does happen in girls. And ethically, you know, we are obligated to understand these girls so we can help them. And so I looked at my own body of research and I said, well, what can I do to help us understand girls better? And so I used some data that we'd already collected and had just never looked at the language and never assembled the particular groups that would allow us to look at boys and girls with and without autism. And that was my first study on sex differences in autism, and found that the way that girls talk when they have autism is different than the way boys talk when they have autism. And it's different in a bunch of different ways. Sometimes it's more like typical, you know, neurotypical girls, and sometimes it's more like autistic boys, but these girls have an interesting and kind of unique set of patterns that distinguish them. And so that finding, you know, we published it in 2017, so that was, you know, 3 years ago now, really spawned a whole line of research in my lab where I'm super interested in figuring out how girls and boys with and without autism communicate differently, and how that might affect their referral rates, and how it might affect their ability to get diagnosed, how it affects their ability to kind of make and maintain friends, and ultimately, you know, achieve their goals in life. So maintain a job, if that's one of their goals, you know, and establish romantic relationships, if that's another one of their goals. So it's become a really kind of cool line of research in my lab.
That's so cool.
It definitely, just like Ben says, it definitely sounds cool, but also very much needed. As you know, just like you said, you basically said is that we know autism is prevalent in boys, and we see it more consistent than when we actually do girls. And I think, you know, if you really just look at, and I'm just thinking outside the box, when you look at the circle of life and how life is actually made, we actually do need, you know, mothers in order to birth our children. Now, don't get me wrong by saying this, that a girl on the spectrum cannot grow to be a woman and give a family to another man. But in order to help them in the process of life, to get them within areas where it may be a little bit difficult because of autism, is very, very, very important. More so, especially in the, and this is just me speaking, just in the African American community, those other ethnic communities where just all across the board, both boys and girls are not being tested enough, and this is not being taken seriously. This is something that is very, very time sensitive. And Ben, I know you can quote on this, and even you, Dr. Julia Morris, you can actually just quote on this. This is very, very urgent. This is something that we definitely need to do.
Absolutely. That's something I think that is less well known too, is that an earlier diagnosis is usually predictive of a better long-term outcome, because we can get supports and services into that family and help the child see their potential as early as possible. But there are certain subgroups that are diagnosed later. So girls are one of those subgroups. Children of color are another one of those subgroups. Immigrants, folks with parents who don't have English as a first language, and people who are kind of financially under-resourced also, so lower socioeconomic status is the way we refer to it. All of those groups tend to get diagnosed not months later, but years later than other children who are better resourced, financially, who are white, who, come from parents who speak English. So there are definite disparities in the way that autism is detected. And that is a huge problem because every day matters when you're talking about detection of autism. And I think you brought up a really important point too, Jamal, about the role of culture and the way that different cultural expectations.
Yes, I love that too. I wanted to piggyback on that, what he said too, about the role of culture. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's something that we don't understand particularly well because most autism research, a lot of it anyway, has been conducted in kind of Western first world type countries and economies. And that's, and not so much focused on the subgroups within those countries that might tell us something about the role that culture plays. Because as we know, autism is fundamentally a kind of an issue with social interaction. So, but social interaction, what is typical, is really different from one culture to another, right? So like eye contact might be more appropriate in one culture than another culture. And what those expectations are going to interact with how autism affects the brain to say like how challenging are these autistic behaviors, or how much do we need to kind of shape the context versus shape the person and kind of get that match between an individual and their cultural context. And I think we don't think about that as much as we could. So I think it's a really exciting avenue for exploration.
So I had a question that I want to piggyback on Dr. Morris about. I had this thought, like, what do you think if we went to different countries and did testing on different people on the spectrum, what results we would get from different people on the spectrum? Like, if we went to England, for example, if you went to like Germany or India or Japan, what kind of testing results do they have differently than Philadelphia does?
That's a great question. So we do know that
about that in my brain.
Thank you, Ben. We do know that autism is it's a neurodevelopmental condition. So we know that it, the kind of the groundwork for it is laid before birth. There's a genetic component. There's, a variety. We don't actually know the cause yet of autism. But we do know that there are some things that seem to be consistent across cultures. So we know that across cultures, folks who are diagnosed with autism might have a harder time with social reciprocity. So during a conversation, kind of maintaining the conversation, feeling like there's a kind of a good flow. We also know that in order to have a diagnosis of autism, you need to have clinically significant repetitive behaviors or restricted interests. And that does seem to, again, kind of be consistent across cultures. I guess the thing that differs a little bit is the way that, I'm so sorry. I just got a notice that my computer will restart in 5 minutes. I'm really sorry.
Oh, it's no problem. It's no problem. What we got? We got.
Okay, we'll be flexible.
Let's see. Did her computer go out, Ben?
I don't know, but she's frozen.
Yeah, she is frozen.
Oh, like, let it go, let it go. I'm just kidding.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, while Dr. Julia Parish-Morris gets her information together as far as her computer just restarting, we want to basically just open up the floor right now to any type of questions, any type of comments, anything that you want to know about the Ben and Jay Show, what we're personally doing right now.
And Jamal, I loved what Julia Parish-Morris said about some different stuff, and I love the idea that I asked her that question about different countries. You know, I just think that's a really good point that we need to bring up. Like, I think a lot of countries should bring up some different thoughts of like how people should be diagnosed early.
Well, my thing definitely with this. Okay, it looks like Dr. Parish is she's still working on it. Okay, what I like about your question is what it is basically pushing the envelope as far as trying to find out what is going on with our children. Why is this happening? And we're not looking at anything else but just the fine line on why it's happening to our children and what ways does it differ all across the world? What ways is it like? Just like Dr. Parrish mentioned, we know what majority of the likenesses are, and that's across the board. So what differs? We have to go into more and more content. Could it be, I mean, I'm just throwing stuff out there. It could be atmosphere. It could be different things that we eat. It could be so many different factors of it. So we're trying to basically find out what's going on with our children. So what you said is really just thought provoking. It's just getting people to the point where they're just saying, hey, you know what, this is worth more looking into. You know, we have plenty of doctors in the world, like Dr. Parish-Morris, who is doing research because they are invested in one way or another, and some of them maybe not. Some of them just are just completely just engulfed in finding out about our awesome children and awesome adults, just like you, Ben. So that was a very good question that you actually put out there. I'm glad you actually asked that. One other thing that Dr. Julia Morris actually pointed out was the fact that the prevalence in girls and boys or research, something that is very much needed. Now, you know, once again, you know, when we're talking just blatantly, obviously people know that we are different cultures, me and you, Ben. You're Caucasian, I'm African American.
Yeah, absolutely.
Separate backgrounds. I've seen what she is speaking about as far as people in that community not getting their children tested.
Exactly. Yes.
But I tell you, one of the main reasons, because I was almost a culprit of it myself as a father, was the fact of my ego and being scared. And you have to put those aside because autism, it's on the clock. You got to get everything diagnosed and everything ready to go immediately. So, you know, I could speak from the more of the urban side, maybe more than what you can, but what she's speaking is so much truth, so much truth. So definitely with her bringing that up, I did definitely like that point. What about you? How did you feel about that point?
About the question about different countries? I like that. I liked how she brought it up and like how we should get people tested in different ways. But sometimes I think differently in different things of like, geez, like how do they do it? Like how do they think about all this stuff? Like, oh, there she is! Yay!
Hey,
I am so sorry.
No,
it's okay.
We were sitting here, you know, me and Ben was getting a very intellectual conversation on, and you know, chopping it up while you got your computer situation taken care of. Thank you. It's no problem.
I appreciate that. I really apologize. Sometimes, so I have a very safe computer because I work for the Children's Hospital, and they periodically send updates and patches and security type things. And there is no control over when your computer will just be like, nope, you're done.
Shout out to CHOP for making sure that individuals
Hospital Philadelphia,
Dr. Parish-Morris is taken care of and all the information is kept safe. So definitely, hey Ben, why don't you start us off with question number 3? We can go right back to it.
Dr. Morris, I personally have felt that barriers are meant to be broken. I have done this everything. I have done it my life. How is your research helping people like myself break these barriers?
Well, I agree, Ben. You have broken so many barriers. You've been such an inspiration for so many people. I know at the Center for Autism Research, one of our most favorite participants, and we're always so happy to see any kind of invitation from you to participate in all of your exciting initiatives. So that's a great question. You know, whenever you're doing research, I feel like there's sometimes the risk, particularly for me, to get really just focused on the details and the data. And I love finding patterns in things.
Like what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that part. But I always
Yeah.
have to remember, how is this going to affect an individual person with autism? How is what I am doing going to make their lives better? Right?
Mhm.
And that's the key. That's the thing that makes all the research worth it. Is finding that connection between the kind of wonky statistics that I care so much about and I have so much fun doing, and the everyday lives of people who are going to actually be impacted by the research questions that I'm asking. So I think for me, I think raising awareness about some of the differences that we see in boys and girls, encouraging people to think about the ways that cultural expectations surrounding how boys and girls are supposed to behave might impact our ability to identify autism in girls. And I think too, just kind of talking about these disparities in diagnosis, in identification, in treatment, I think is also really, really important. I know that the Ben and Jay show has kind of talked about this in the past, and I think it's just such an important message that autism occurs everywhere, and
Yes.
we really need to keep our eyes open as clinicians, as researchers, to finding autism everywhere and really giving it all its due in terms of studying it and making sure that the individuals themselves benefit from the kinds of research.
And I want to piggyback on what you said about autism research and stuff. And I love what CHOP does with the Philadelphia Eagles, with the Eagles Autism Challenge and stuff. Like they want to help out with different stuff, because I was just like looking over at my Smoopdo and I was like, Eagles, and I'm like, wow, they do a lot of stuff. Like they help people, and I just think I want to give a shout out to the Eagles organization that they help CHOP a lot with some different stuff with autism.
Yeah, the Eagles have been incredibly supportive of the research that we've been doing over at CHOP. So I'm sure you're aware of the Eagles Autism Challenge.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, which unfortunately this year is not happening due to the pandemic. It's very unfortunate, but we missed out on that this year. But it has been a really successful event in the past. The community has really come out to support individuals with autism and autism research more generally. And the Eagles themselves, Jeffrey Lurie and the scientists at the Eagles have been phenomenal. We've had amazing conversations with them. They have provided funding for different studies that we're doing at the Center for Autism Research. So they've just been an incredible support for us, particularly I think with like newer projects that it's hard to get federal funding for. Something that's more exploratory or doesn't have a lot of data on it, but that we really want to explore. Sometimes we can talk to the Eagles and they'll say, yeah, you know what, we'll give you a little bit of money. You can see if you can, find any promising results out of a pilot study. And I think that has been incredibly helpful too. So they've really been amazing support.
Wow. Shout out to the Eagles. Definitely the Eagles.
Yes, sir.
So, Doctor, I have a question. This linguistic signature of autism, can you explain more in detail what this might be when it comes to ASD?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the thing that's most exciting for me is that conversations are really where autism happens, right? So when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody, there are lots of things that are going on, and we don't really think about it. Folks who are neurotypical or who haven't really thought deeply about all the things that go into a conversation, it's actually really quite hard to maintain a conversation that everybody feels great about at the end, because there's pauses that you have to negotiate. There's what words do I use? Will this person understand me? How is my eye contact doing? Am I smiling enough? They're nodding. Am I supposed to nod too? What am I supposed to do with my hands? Like there's just a lot happening, right? Like what if there's something cool over there? Can I just pay attention to that for a second? What happens to my conversation if that happens? So there are all these multiple factors that go into having a conversation. And what I'm really interested in doing is understanding what all of those factors are. And then for a given individual with autism, finding out kind of where the soft spots are. Where is it hard to maintain that conversation? So is the eye contact a little off? Is there not enough, too much? What's happening, with the words that you're choosing? Does the other person understand what you're trying to communicate? All of those pieces. So I work together with a larger team at the Center for Autism Research. I study everything that comes out of a person's mouth. That's my favorite thing. Study anything that comes out of there. Laughter, crying, talking, all the stuff that comes out of your mouth. But I work with a team of computer vision researchers who study everything that you can see. So your gestures, your eye contact, your smiling, your head nodding. And together, we just actually got a big grant to put together all of those signals and try and figure out kind of what is it that is slightly different about individuals with autism when they're having a conversation. So that's a little bit different than a lot of research in the past that has looked at things like, do you know grammar? Mm-hmm. Do you have a vocabulary that's big? You know, and those are questions that you can ask, and you don't need a conversation to do that. But what we're doing now is we're recording everything that happens in a conversation. We have a special camera that we created at the Center for Autism Research.
Love that.
Yeah, we call it the Biosensor or the tree cam. We have lots of different names for it, but it's a small device that has 2 cameras facing in opposite directions, as well as 4 directional microphones that are facing in opposite directions. It's small, it's wireless, it's we custom built it on a Raspberry Pi. Our engineer, Keith Bartley, is the one who built this. And then it collects everything that happens in a conversation. It even has a Bluetooth connection to collect things like heart rate and heart rate variability. So we have another researcher in our lab, John Harrington, who looks at heart rate and things like skin conductance. So there's the possibility of collecting absolutely every signal that is emitted during the course of a conversation to really characterize what's happening. And if you can really characterize it, you can measure it, right? Then you can figure out interventions and treatments that might help people feel more successful.
And I wanted to piggyback again what you said on that, and that's what Bob Schultz talked about a lot too. Speaking of Bob Schultz, I just want to give him a special thank you for when you come on, and you and just everybody at CHOP for being so outgoing and helping me out for the years. I just want to say for your time, for your research studies and everything that you do. I just love how you guys are connecting the different ways of, it's kind of like a puzzle piece. It's kind of like building the blocks, building like, I don't know how to say it, like something that we need to use for our future for research. Go ahead.
Definitely, you make a very good point. It's like you were saying, the building blocks for the research for the future. So you were right on point with what you were saying. The research, what you guys can do is simply amazing. Like as you were speaking, I was like sort of like just envisioning the conversations and the things for me and my son. I know a lot of times when we talk, it may seem a little awkward for most people from the outside looking in with the conversation. I'll ask him a question, he'll talk, he'll speak about it, and then there will be immediate shut off. But it's not that he's not engaged. It's just that's the way his mind is thinking. Is like, oh, okay, I'm done talking. That's it. On to the next thing. And he would just politely go on to the next thing, almost like we didn't talk. But it's the communication that I've grown accustomed to. And quite frankly, it made it easier for the transition in the chemistry with myself and Ben. Because Ben's his chemistry in this conversation is very, very unique and fluid. It's very outgoing and very uplifting. I love it, but I'm used to it because I already had the experience with Shane. Your research amplifies it like 10 times over. And I once again, your research is very valuable because I just started to think, and I'm like, wow, if only people would realize what you were actually doing, it's almost giving them the blueprint plan on autism at its best. What's going on currently right now? What are we looking out for? How we can better notice if a person is on the spectrum too. So it's your research is phenomenal. I can't wait to read a lot more online. Even some of the past articles I actually glanced over, and it's very intuitive, but it's very much worth it. So everybody that's out there and watching this, just look her up. Definitely take time to look her up and look at her work already so far. You will not be dissatisfied. Ben, you got the next question. I'm sorry. I was
gonna say one more thing before we go on to the next question. It's kind of like I don't know if you heard of the Nintendo Switch game Animal Crossing. We have like they have different emojis on their heads and stuff, and that brought me to a point like Wow, I think we should do a research study on that, on Animal Crossing, because it would be great to see how kids with autism play the game, and you could visit different people's islands, and then you could just talk back and forth with the text talk.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Let me find out. Ben, he's a scientist too. What is Ben not? He's the mayor, he's the man, he's the legend, and now scientist.
Could Animal Crossing, that's a good question, because my brother was talking to me about that. Can Animal Crossing help people with autism? And I said, yeah, it can, because it has like the question mark on there. It has like different emoji cues. And I just thought, wow, I need to bring that up. All right, let me bring up the next question. Which are we on number 7, Jamal?
No, 5.
5. I'm sorry. I apologize. Do you think we are close to understanding autism and its diversity?
Well, I think we're taking steps in that direction every day. I think the recognition that individuals with autism are so unique and different one to the next has been a really important one for people to kind of stop lumping so much and start looking at individuals, more independent of one another. I think that's been a really important step. I think that there are lots of places that we really haven't gone. One of those places that I think is really fascinating is the gender diversity that we see in autism. So there are a lot of individuals with autism that don't identify as boys or girls, and this is really relevant for my research, right? And who kind of identify as somewhere in between, or maybe nowhere, like no real label. And I think understanding how experiences of autism change according to those types of, more, maybe special or unique situations with kind of gender non-binary folks. I think that's a really interesting future direction that has just barely started to be tapped, really, barely. And like I mentioned before, I think cross-cultural differences in autism is another place that has just recently started to become of interest. I just think there's a whole thousands of questions that we can ask, and I think that that's the thing that keeps me so excited about my job. Is that like every day I'm surrounded by
I get to go to work today.
right, like the director of the Center for Autism Research, all the folks there who just spend their whole lives thinking about these really interesting questions about individuals like Ben, who are just fascinating and have so much to contribute. We're never going to get bored, I think. And I think that that's really exciting. And recognizing, too, that everybody's mind, the neurodiversity movement has been really exciting, to watch and be a part of. Seeing individuals with autism really express themselves and talk about their experiences, and like Ben, be movers and shakers in the community.
Being on Ellen, I didn't think I thought that would happen, and my parents thought it would never happen.
There you go. Look at that, breaking down barriers, Ben.
Yeah, I did. I broke down a barrier. I did.
You sure did. Yeah.
So, Doctor, we have a series going on. It's a 2-part series. We're actually doing the second part. Is with Max Wolsener and also Matthew Wash. And what they're concerning is their project is addressing the isolation that COVID-19 has brung, and how it gives a taste of what some people experience every day on the spectrum. It's very, very, very key, I think, to right now for everybody to watch and to stay tuned with. Are you personally feeling these effects on your life? And what has this quarantine taught you personally?
Boy, I had not thought about this.
See, we're getting you. You're
getting me here. You're getting me. Yes, it has been really challenging. I think I didn't know how much I wanted to be around other people until I wasn't. So I worked from home before the crisis. I worked from home a couple days a week. I really enjoyed my time at home. I felt very productive. But I didn't realize how much I would miss just stopping by other people's offices, having, a quick chat about a research question while we're both going to the kitchen for a drink of water, and those hallway interactions, I miss them. So I was a little surprised about that. I do have lots of Zoom meetings now. I feel like, well, our version of Zoom at CHOP, which is a secure version. And so I see people a lot, but I miss them still. There's something to be said for face-to-face interaction that I really miss. And even when I do need to leave my house, for example, to go to the store and buy necessities, everyone's wearing a mask, which is good, as we should, right, at this point. But I actually miss seeing people's smiles. So I was thinking the other day, boy, I wish I had a clear mask so that everybody could see me smiling at them. So when we're driving through with our carts in the grocery store and we get too close and we have to go around, I want people to know that I'm smiling. So I thought about maybe doing like a movement or something to be like, I'm smiling at you behind my mask to go around. You know, all those things.
I like that. That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, that we do socially to help each other know, like, I'm not trying to run into you. I'm being friendly and going around you. So sometimes I have said, I'm smiling at you while I'm going around my cart. It got a weird look back. I think they were smiling too underneath their masks. So it's been challenging. And I'm curious, I guess, to hear about other people's experiences too, about how this has felt for them, because I think I was surprised by my own reaction. I think a lot of people have been surprised. So Ben and Jamel, I mean, how has it been for you? I'm probably not supposed to be asking questions, but I'm actually.
No, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
I got to turn it around.
Ben can go ahead and speak first on that. I'll go right after Ben. Go ahead,
How's COVID-19 been for me? Well, all my events got canceled, and I was kind of disappointed that I couldn't go out and speak into the community about my story, about me living with autism. I was scheduled to go speak at different schools. I had a big conference speaking at Gwinnett Mercy in April, and then all of it just was like washed away. So then that's when I came up with this idea of this show, because I really wanted to get the community involved and get the community engaging on our conversations. And that's why I'm excited for Friday night, because I came up with that idea last minute, and I was like, we got to get these people to talk about more about this stuff. And I'm like, what could we do? And I said, I know the perfect people. So then I called out my buddy Aaron and Jamel, and they're like, I like this idea. Let's do it. And we are now going to do something on Friday night as like a big panel thing to get people talking.
Yes, definitely. Piggyback on what Ben is saying. I mean, it's been a real eye opener for me. I always say, when things are becoming hectic for me personally, I always go to my religion, which is Christianity. So God is working something out, something bigger than what we can understand that he's working right now. But my son, which a lot of our viewers and people who know me is on the spectrum, I have been unable to see him since this first started. So I see him through just doing video calls every day and text message, but it's nothing like that one-on-one touch. And I think we take that for granted a lot these days. I remember just when he was younger and we took him, well, I did, it was the entire month to the CHOP feeding program because he wasn't eating. And I remember me getting mad and irritated because he just wouldn't leave me alone. He was always under me like, daddy this and daddy that, or he'll come up and hug me and everything. And now that you think back to it, you're like, God, I wish for that attention again, or for him to come up to me and give me a hug, or for me to hug him. So I think it really did put in perspective for me all of the things that I took for granted in the past when it came to being there and watching him grow up and really, really wanting him more, wanting those simple things like just sitting on a couch with him laying on me. I miss those moments. So it's tough, but I know it's going to be for the good. I'm just looking forward to the day that I can actually hug him. That's the first thing that I want to do. When we get to okay, I just want to go straight over to my son's house and I just want to hug him. That's it. That's what I'm looking forward to. So it's rough. It's rough. I just hope everybody that's out there just don't give up hope. Don't get depressed. Just understand that it will happen soon. It will.
Yeah, it will. And it's hard because there's so much uncertainty. You know, like, we don't know the timeline. We don't know when it will be okay to see our friends and family again. And so that's really, really hard. And, you know, taking one day at a time, creating these opportunities like you and Ben have, to spread some joy, spread some knowledge, keep in touch with people, I think has been, I think that's one of the best coping skills you can have is to, when you're feeling hopeless and uncertain, you know, create something. Do something generative, you know, to create something and help other people connect as well. So that's what you guys have done, and it's really fabulous.
Thank you.
Ben, go ahead. I know you got more questions, man.
Okay, Ben. Yes. All right. So this is my last question. So yeah. Is it number 7? Yeah. Is there anything that you are researching now? If so, what is it?
That's a great question too, Ben. Well, I have a variety of research projects going right now. Almost all of them are focused on how kids with autism or kids who we think have a high chance of developing autism talk or cry or make sounds. So I do study babies as well as older kids and adults. So it's a whole across the lifespan. I'm a developmental psychologist, so I'm interested in the way that people change in their communication over time. I also have another study which I think is fascinating, and it's using virtual reality to help individuals with autism develop skills that might be useful when they're interacting with police officers.
Wow.
And I know this is a collaboration with the
Philadelphia. And I was going to piggyback on what you said. Can I piggyback real quick, or do you want to finish? Go ahead. I wasn't sure.
I'm going to piggyback again. Oh, we lost Dr. Parish-Morris. Oh, right when we was getting to the meat of everything. That's okay.
We'll wait.
We'll wait. So it's amazing that she just said that when it comes down to just interaction with police officers. If you guys, the audience, has a chance to, I actually had a chance to do an interview with a Philadelphia police officer who I'd never met before, and it's called Ask an Awesome Father. You can go on YouTube. It's on The Awesome Show, TheAusomeshow 2020, and you can watch the interview. Once we get Dr. Parish-Morris back online, I'm very interested to hear more about this, but we're in a time where our police officers that are protecting our neighborhoods are coming in contact with people just like you, Ben. So I think interaction between police officers that never experience an interaction with a person on the spectrum and being trained in different scenarios and also vice versa is very helpful just to continue to balance in society between people.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. No, and I was going to say before Dr. Parrish left is I was on Facebook a couple of days ago, and I met this young gentleman who has autism. His name is Tom Island.
Okay.
And he is on the autism spectrum, and he told me that he does a lot of work with police officers. Like they train them.
That's right. You were telling me about Tom. That's right.
And I just was like, wow. That's so cool. I said, you got to get connected with Jamel. And he goes, oh, yeah, absolutely. And he writes these, and he has these little card things that say, I have autism, or I have Down syndrome. I have this and this. It just helps the policemen know what's going on in different situations.
I think before they used to do that. Like a lot of people actually did have those tags. The problem, once again, ego started coming in and saying, oh, well, I don't want to characterize my child. I get it. No one wants to label their child something that is going to be perceived negative to society. What you have to understand is that if I'm someone who never had an interaction or any type of involvement with someone on the spectrum, how am I supposed to know to treat your child or your loved one different than what I would treat anybody else on the street? Now, that doesn't say I'm supposed to treat anyone different, but if you are in the law enforcement side, which I happen to have had experience in law enforcement, you gauge the situation before you act. Sometimes you don't have that ability and you have to act right away. Just being able to see that notice saying, hey, I'm on the spectrum, anywhere posted, will give that person the ability to retract and calm down and say, okay, let me go ahead and approach this situation different. So we want to apologize, Dr. Parish-Morris. We're trying to see, she may be able to get back in. We're actually at 10 minutes left. We do apologize. There have been some connection issues, as she explained before. CHOP, very, very, very airtight ship over there. They're making sure that their computers are being used in good purposes, which this show is a good purpose. But in the meantime, let's see if we can go on to the actual raffle. Let's get that raffle. How about that, Ben? You want to see if we can get
and if she comes back on, we will just continue the conversation. All right. So, wait. After the Ben and Jay show, head to the. Okay, yes, we will do that. I already got that. So, real quick, I just have a real quick announcement. Make sure you go to Bev Weinberg's event for Integrate for Good after the show. Me and Jay will be there. We're going to be dancing. We'll be partying. We'll be having a lot of fun. So come on over. I'll be on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and I'll say, come on over to Integrate for Good. Donate now and help out Bev Weinberg. All right.
Help out Bev.
The winner for the Tony Roney's Pizza.
The winner.
Wait a minute. What? No way. Max just won.
Max what?
Wassenberg. Yeah, Max.
Hey, Max is our winner. Shout out to Max.
What?
Yes, sir.
Max, you're our winner.
Of what? Sorry, I'm sorry.
The Tony Roney's Pizza gift certificate.
Wow, thank you. Very nice of you.
Do you want? So it's a coupon for a free 16-inch pizza or a tomato pie. You can bring it to your family. You can bring it to your work. And it's good to the end of the year.
Not bad. I mean, my mom makes amazing dough, but I can. You get it.
Don't offend your mom if you bring home another pizza, okay? Don't get in trouble because of us.
Yep. So just email me your information and stuff, and we'll send it to you. Like, we'll send it to you. All right. So just email. Oh, hey, you're back.
Hey, we got it. All right, we got Dr. Parish-Morris back online. Can you hear us?
I can. I just would like to say to the whole universe that Ben and Jamil really tested my technical abilities before this happened. Like, we had a planning session. We had like a whole meeting. I really apologize. I just basically confiscated my daughter's computer just now and downloaded the software. So I am so sorry, everybody, but I really appreciate your patience with me.
We're gonna bring you back on the show sometime again. I think we could, because I would love to continue more of these conversations.
Definitely. I got one more question, Doctor, before we get out of here. We appreciate you just, working effortlessly, committing a couple of crimes by stealing your daughters. We appreciate your servitude to the autism community. But this is the last question before we get out of here. Me being a father to an awesome boy, shout out to my son Shane. Like Ben it was hard for me to process the information, the therapies, the restrictions, yet alone my own feelings when it came to the diagnosis. Can you share some word of advice to the parents when it comes to parenting a child that is on the spectrum?
Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to say that parents of kids on the spectrum are amazing. It's parenting at all is, I would just like to say, really hard. Like, we don't think it's that hard until we're actually doing it, and then it turns out it's actually really hard. And parenting a child on the spectrum is a unique and challenging experience. Every kid, I think, brings their own, their own challenges. Mm-hmm. But I would just say, especially during this time of social distancing and this pandemic, to just be as kind to yourselves as possible as parents. We all have to do what we have to do to get through this. It's challenging for all of us to suddenly be isolated. Reaching out for support however you can get it, through friends and family and phone calls and doing FaceTime and all the different ways that we can try and connect with one another right now. And just letting people know if you need extra support as a parent. You know, parents can really support one another during this time. And I think being honest with our kids that this is hard and we're all in this together and we're all trying to figure this out together. You know, honesty and being as kind as possible to ourselves as well, I think is an incredibly important thing right now. But I've been so inspired by the parents that I've met. You know, kids don't come to our center unless a parent brings them, really. Yeah. You know, most of the time they can't drive, right? They're too young. But I
have autism.
There you go. Yes, as an older person, yes, definitely. But you know, a lot of the kids in my studies are 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and parents are really committed to this process too. And then, you know, we're also excited when we see adults like Ben, you know, who has become so independent and is able to drive and, you know, do all of these exciting tasks of life. You know, I think that families with autism, really taken as a group, families with autism are really an inspiring kind of family. And I know at the Center for Autism Research, whenever we write a paper, whenever we, you know, thank anybody, we're always thanking the children and families that participate in our research, because we couldn't do it without you. You know, every time Ben comes to the Center for Autism Research and participates in a study, he tells us something brand new about autism that we didn't know before. And is amazing and exciting. And we really rely on families and participants to move our science forward. And so I would really encourage anyone who's watching, who is a family that has autism or knows someone with autism, or even, you know, neurotypical folks. We're always looking for control participants. We would love for you to participate in our research. It's easy. Most of our research just involves having conversations with people while you're being recorded. And we pay you. Like, you know, people's time is valuable. We give you a little bit of payment. You can come out of it with a clinical report that you are free to share with your healthcare provider or your educational provider or not. It's completely private. We never share that information with anybody. So it's up to you. So there's a lot of benefits, I think, to taking part in the scientific process. You know, you're contributing to everybody's better lives, really. So we're so appreciative. And, you know, Ben has been a shining star in our research process. And and thank you to parents like you, Jamil, as well, for making it all possible.
Thank you. Well, I couldn't have done it alone. Of course, Shane's mom is a big part, and I just want to send a shout out to Veronica Nieves, that is Shane's mom. Thank you for everything that you do, you and your boyfriend, Chris, who provide a very safe, loving home on your part, and then me and my wife on our part. Makes the difference and makes the balance for our children. So definitely got to give credit where credit is due. And we want to give all the credit to you being here today. You have made this show not only a staple in the autism community during these rough times, but a spectacular and amazing event for the Ben and Jay Show. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, please give up for the doctor. Go ahead, Ben.
Parish.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate you hanging in there with me through my technical problems. I promise all in the name of security, CHOP is very, very, very secure. So.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was telling the audience. So just thank you. Great times, great information. We wish you all the luck for you and your family, safety and health going into the new year. And Ben, you had something else?
I was going to say, having autism is not a bad thing, and it doesn't characterize who we are. Everyone is unique and special, just like a rainbow. Also, everybody, let's be kind to one another this week. Thank you for everybody who's tuned in today. Special shout out to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Thank you to a special shout out to Tony Roney's, Parish-Morris, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia's Car Autism Center. Thank you so much for helping us out with this. Special shout out to Access Services and to my mom and dad. You guys are the best.
There you go. And Congratulations to our winner. If you would like to be a sponsor or support what we do here at the Ben and Jay Show, please contact Access Services by logging on to www.accessservices, all one word, .org.donate. And follow us on both Instagram and Facebook at Access Services for encouraging updates throughout the week. And just like Ben, I just want to encourage you guys just to keep in mind that autism is not contagious, but a smile is. And that is from Autism Parenting Magazine. Can't take credit for it, but I love the quote. Thank you for joining us. See you next week. It's the Ben and Jay Show.
Yes, sir.
You guys are great. Have a great week.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.